Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Africa Updates, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. And this week on the program, we are looking at the AES's exit from the ECOWAS. Don't go nowhere, we'll be right back. Welcome back, it's still Africa Update on Trust TV, and I'm your host, Chiamaka Mwafo. Now, the Sahel states, that the Alliance of Sahel states, AES for short, the Economic West African Countries, ECOWAS, has officially acknowledged that the withdrawal of the AES, that's Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger, from the regional bloc, effective January 29, 2025. So this is not the final nail in that coffin. My guest on the program said for now. So I'm going to find out from him what he means by for now. But this move follows a year-long process initiated by these nations, all currently under military rule, to depart from ECOWAS. In response, the three countries have formed the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, to enhance cooperation in security and economic matters. Here is more. We'll be right back.
The AES is the renaissance of Africa, and I think that all the countries that aspire to the rebirth of Africa should join the AES.
A year ago, these three nations have notified the regional body, ECOWAS, that they wanted to leave the organization immediately. I think what is unprecedented here is that we're dealing with three military coup leaders who have decided together to leave the ECOWAS and to form a new alliance called the Alliance of Sahelian States. And this is quite unprecedented. So one of the advantages of the ECOWAS region, which is, I could say, the most integrated region in Africa by many standards, is that within the ECOWAS, citizens travel freely from one country to the other without a visa. They can work in the countries of the ECOWAS without any sort of authorization. And what we know so far is that the AES countries have established their own passports. We have not seen those passports yet. I don't know what they look like. The ECOWAS passports, which their citizens still hold, will still be valid until their expiration date. First of all, I would like to say and remind everyone that none of these three countries have held any popular consultations that will effectively tell them whether their citizens approve of the withdrawal from the ECOWAS or not. And so I think it's impossible, I think, at this point to know whether citizens agree with this decision. Now, when it comes to trade between those countries, again, I think the ECOWAS is still working out what it means for them, for three former members to exit the organization, and whether trade will be impacted. As I said earlier, the ECOWAS region is the most integrated region of Africa, and I think the economic integration of this region is really truly a success. So I think for an entire year there have been diplomatic efforts led by the ECOWAS and some countries such as Togo and Senegal to really convince the AES countries to come back to the regional bloc. I think one of the reasons that they have exited is that the ECOWAS was putting pressure on these military leaders to conduct elections. They had an electoral timetable, and these military leaderships were really feeling the pressure from the ECOWAS. So I think exiting the ECOWAS is a de facto, we do not want elections, and we're not going to obey your rules, and we can do whatever we want.
All right, that's it. Now, despite their exit, ECOWAS has expressed a commitment to maintaining collaborative ties, and the bloc has decided to keep its doors open, allowing citizens of the departing nations to continue enjoying privileges such as free movement within the region. So much to unpack. Now, joining me on the program to further discuss this is one of our main acts on the program, Ambassador Bulus Lulu, a former representative of the AU. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Chair Maka.
don't think we've seen this year, so Happy New Year.
Same to you. It's the end of the month, the first month of the year, so Happy New Year still.
Happy New Year still. So now let's go into the conversation. This is it now. Apparently it takes 1 year for ECOWAS to finally say, okay, they're gone, but they've been gone since sometime last year, 2024, but this is it now. Officially, they've left the ECOWAS.
Right.
What's your take?
Well, it's unfortunate that the events in the sub-region have ended with the 3 states leaving ECOWAS, and they have formed their own alliance, the Alliance of Sahel States. But we should look at West Africa in its wider context, that no nation today can afford to be an island to itself. And the 3 states, especially being landlocked countries, they have times and areas that they will need the cooperation of the other members of ECOWAS. And for ECOWAS, celebrating its 50th anniversary in 2025, it is the last thing they would have imagined that they will celebrate the 50th anniversary with the exit of 3 founding members. But this said, I believe that there is a lot more to what is going on than meets the eye, especially with the 3 Sahelian states. The grievances they have include, but not limited to, their perception that ECOWAS is tilted to the West, their view too that there is external influence. But when you talk of external influence, Russia, Turkey, and Iran are involved with the 3 states. And these are not African countries per se. And therefore, it is, in my view, contradictory if they complain of external influence, but are also dealing with external powers. So what is it that has led to the exit of the 3 countries? Well, I am not speaking for them, but I want to believe that the current leadership in the 3 countries, all military, and without any political transition plan in place, is leading these countries, the leaders are leading them in a direction that they themselves will consolidate their stay in office and therefore protect their own interests. This is the number one thing that I put out on the table. The second thing, of course, is maybe they want the world to know that they exist, and therefore a way of calling attention to themselves by now grandstanding and saying it was like a bluff. Now they have left, but how far will they go? And how far then will the romance between them and their citizens also last? Because soon after the official announcement of their exit, there was spontaneous, but I believe sponsored rallies to welcome their decision to exit. But it's too early in the day for me to say this is how things will end.
Okay, so let's go to one of the major issues we have in the Sahel region, which is a security issue. And we see that sometime last week, these same people decided to form a 5,000-man army or military to be able to fight the terrorism. Now, this in general and this their exit, how does it affect the fight against terrorism in this region, or rather still in the ECOWAS region?
I alluded to this when I said that they are not an island, and it is through cooperation that they will achieve better results. Okay? Let's take this principle of hot pursuit, for instance. Where would the 5,000 strong army draw the line? And on their own, can they guarantee their own security? And exclusively so without the cooperation of the very members that they have left behind. So this is where the challenge in my mind comes from. That yes, you are no longer in the same group with me, but does it mean you don't need me? So it is truly a situation that calls for maturity. It is also a situation that demands optimal use of diplomacy rather than crude reliance on crowds to celebrate or condemn. That will not change the fact. So, like Nigeria and Niger, okay? I don't know, because I'm not in government, I don't know if there is any communication left between the Nigerian government and the Nigerian government. Some time back, again, whether true or false, a video trended where the head of government of Niger accused some people in Nigeria of harboring and sponsoring this Lakurawa recent group that came into being. There has to be, and that channel must be very open and effective between the contiguous states. Otherwise, there will be no peace in the Sahel states, and the situation in what is left of ECOWAS will not be any better.
Okay, now, ECOWAS has said that they're going to allow for free movement between us, you know, saying as you can come in, you've left, it doesn't matter, but there's still free movement. But there's the issue of economic trade between these countries. Now, how does this exit, how is it going to have an impact?
I really can't say, because I've not looked at the figures of recent to know the volume of trade between them. But whatever that level is, okay, whatever that level is, I think ECOWAS, in allowing free movement and recognition of ECOWAS passports as possessed by the nationals of these countries, is the right thing to do. It shows maturity, and it also shows magnanimity. But for how long will that be? Because I'm asking myself, nationals of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger who are holding senior positions in ECOWAS.
I was going to get to that, because the Secretary Gen is from Burkina Faso.
Precisely.
How does that?
So that is in fact, that's the question. All right. If he got into that position because he is a national of a member country, can he continue to serve in that position without making ECOWAS to look a laughing stock in the eyes of the world? This is one area. And apart from even the president of the commission, there are nationals, there are also even commissioners who are from these countries. Now, yes, they gave them a window of 6 months to think through, but they've said no, they're not waiting the 6 months. They've left, and left for good. If you leave for good and you don't want to have anything to do with ECOWAS, it means, therefore, your own nationals who are benefiting from ECOWAS are not deserving of anything. And so, the more reason why, when I say it requires optimal diplomacy, this is the time for it. And I hope that our leaders out there will allow reason to prevail, and equally deploy that diplomatic skill and tact that abounds in the sub-region in order to overcome this situation.
Now, let's go to where you used to be a permanent representative of, that's the AU, and tell me, what is their stance on this situation? Because now it's really official, if we're still having a hope.
It has nothing, I don't think it has much to do with the AU, other than the fact that it will challenge some of the aspirations of the African Union to foster and deepen regional integration. All right. Otherwise, their membership of ECOWAS, of the AU continues. And at the same time, too, we look at the instruments that the AU has in place, such as the African Peace and Security Architecture, APSA, as they call it. That has taken a hit because in West Africa now, you are having to deal with two groups: ECOWAS as a bloc, and the Alliance of Sahelian States as an emerging bloc. Are these three countries the only member states? We don't know, because we must not take our eyes away from Guinea and what is happening in Guinea.
Senegal.
And even Senegal. Much as Senegal is ruled by a democratically elected president, he is a president who does not want and is showing no sign that he has the appetite to continue with French overriding influence in Senegal. So it's a new thing, but having a member leave ECOWAS, of course, is not new. If one recalls that in 2000, Mauritania left, that was like a dress rehearsal. Now you have the full act going on. So let's wait and see how things play out.
So now that you mentioned that, are we looking at more blocks coming out from the West Africa?
I hope not. We don't need more blocks. What we need is greater result. What we need is impact on the ground. And for too long, I think we have been dealing with principles and with very little to show. By now, if we are looking at the past 50 years, West Africa ought to be, the impact of ECOWAS ought to have been more manifest than we do see on the ground, in the sense that, yes, free movement is true, exchange of goods is also true, but how much do we see of the collaboration between states? You still have Nigerians in ECOWAS states being maltreated. You have Nigerians also being seen as foreigners. And therefore, I will want to see a situation where, whether it is ECOWAS or any other group that will emerge, will bring people closer, will build upon the cultural bonds that exist and translate those into tangible results on the ground, so that levels of poverty will go down. There will be more infrastructure linking villages, more services of, and provision of goods that will impact and enhance the well-being of people.
Finally, just before you go,
Right.
Is there any hope of a reconciliation or a re-entry? I know you said, for now, once that final nail in the coffin.
In 2023, I did say that, and this was when the crisis erupted in Niger, the last coup d'etat there. I said it was, a storm in a teacup, but at the end, I'll rule nothing out. I'll rule nothing out. So there is hope.
There is hope.
I believe so.
All right, that's what we have packaged for you for now on the program. When we come out from the break, we'll have some more stories on the African continent. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back from that break. Thank you for still staying with us on Africa Update on Trust TV. Now, climate change is making it harder for African farmers to grow the continent's staple crop, maize. But food activists in South Africa say a return to traditional diets could help. Reporting from Johannesburg, Zahir Kasim explores the benefits of sorghum and why this indigenous African grain is disappearing from grocery shelves.
Sorghum has long been a dietary staple across Africa. The grain is native to the continent. It requires less water than maize and is packed with vitamins, minerals, fiber, antioxidants, and protein, earning it the title of a superfood. Still, South African farmers produce about 80% less sorghum than they did 30 years ago, official data shows.
When you look into the pros and cons on sorghum, we should be growing sorghum because the small-scale farmers, if you think about how many smallholder farmers we have in this country, if they were to all to grow, or majority of them were to grow, we would have enough sorghum in this country.
Food activist and chef Mokgadi Etsweng is calling for a return to traditional diets, including sorghum.
We have a connection with sorghum that is spiritual. So if we had to go back to all eating sorghum, no one's going to eat the maize. No one's going to want, because maize is also not sustainable.
Maize is South Africa's primary staple food and its most widely grown crop, according to government data. But severe weather linked to last year's El Nino pushed up maize prices across much of southern Africa. Sorghum is far more drought tolerant and can grow on less fertile land. But sorghum production takes up more space and is more labor intensive and costly to grow, say experts. Today, sorghum is found mostly in wealthy areas and is billed as a premium product. Economists say farmers see a limited market for it.
The decisions are made by the farmers on the basis of the profitability. And in fact, if you talk to food processors, they likely want to process sorghum and put it out in the market, but they are just not seeing the mass demand for it.
Food activists say boosting demand for sorghum could spark more production and reduce costs, making this superfood a viable alternative to maize.
Still staying with stories in the southern part of Africa, Zimbabwe's traditional stores are struggling to stay afloat as customers flock to informal vendors to buy cheaper products amid a struggling economy. Meanwhile, the government is working to ensure it does not lose critical tax revenue from informal business sales. Columbu's Mavunga reports from Harare.
Like other Zimbabweans, 47-year-old Edna Katiyo buys her groceries from informal street vendors in Harare, who usually appear after hours to avoid the police.
These shops are cheaper than conventional shops. Plus, there are no queues. You pick your items, pay, and then you leave.
Economists say traditional stores are struggling to compete with vendors because Zimbabwe's new currency, the ZiG or Zimbabwean gold, is fixed at 26.32 against the US dollar. But the money changers say the rate is around 40 ZiG per US dollar on the black market. Street vendor Takudzwa Saki agrees.
The fixed rate makes goods expensive in traditional shops, so shoppers end up coming to buy from us vendors.
Unlike informal markets, traditional shops are forced to accept the local currency, and shop owners say they must go on the black market for the US dollar to buy more stock. Economists say the Zimbabwe government is also losing important tax revenue from the informal market sales.
There's no country which is developed on the backbone of informal economy. And you get a point where you get to the government cannot have enough revenue to do government duties like your provision of education, provision of health and other stuff. So it's a failure.
Mahembe says retailers and wholesale operators are also struggling in Zimbabwe's economic environment. That includes a volatile currency and taxes, fees and regulations that retailers say make it difficult to stay afloat.
What we are currently calling for government is to intervene, and particularly our president, Dr. Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, to rescue us from this situation that we are currently in, and rescue us of what's left of the formal retail.
The Confederation of Zimbabwe Retailers has asked the government to formalize the informal sector and create a more equitable environment for all sides. Meanwhile, officials say government agencies are working to register informal vendors.
Increase our tax base and make sure that the fiscus gets what is due to it. Then to make sure that we actually tap on the informal sector as well, we have put up what we call the kiosks. These kiosks are basically they've got laptops and computers where informal traders can get access to our system and register without any challenge.
All informal traders that VOA spoke with said they were not aware of such registration.
And there you have it. That's much we have for you today on the program Africa Update. For more of our news, programs, and documentaries, don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms and on our YouTube live stream. I am your host, Chiamaka Mwafo. Same time, same place. Bye for now.